Hey guys, Mike Wood here with ViperSharp. I have Crystal Grimes with me today from Aegis Real Estate. She's the owner of her real estate agency here close, and a kind enough neighbor to help me out with giving some questions so that I can answer questions in a more natural fashion. So we're going to go through and answer her questions about the ViperSharp and give you a little clarification on ViperSharp.
So my first question is what is the ViperSharp?
Okay, so, and I'm going to give you my history and background on that. So I've carried a knife for as long as I can remember, at least one, usually multiple, and I like to keep it sharp. And I was never good at hand sharpening. I could never really, get a good edge. I just wasn't good at hand sharpening. So a few years back, a friend of mine who does a lot of Boy Scouting introduced me to a guided system that would help keep that angle, because that's the hardest part in sharpening is staying at the same angle every time. Right.
That makes sense.
And so I was using that, but it had some quirks and things I didn't like. It had limited holes for the guide rod. We'll go ahead and throw this on here. And I'll talk about that in a minute, how that works. But it had slop in this guide rod. It wasn't held tight, so I had to hold my finger back here. If I wanted a stand, a base for it, I had to pay extra for that. I was going to just make an aftermarket product for that sharpening system to sell, to improve, that main thing where this is sloppy. But the more I got into creating that, the more problems I found that I didn't like. And so it wasn't long, I found myself designing my own system, and I started researching what people didn't like and tried to build a system to address all of those concerns.
Okay.
And so that's where ViperSharp, that was the birth of ViperSharp.
Okay, and so how is this different from like the stands that you have that people use to sharpen their knives in a kitchen?
All right, so it's going to give you a utility sharp, but it's not going to really give you a good edge long term, or a precision edge.
Or healthy for the knife. Right,
and this was something I wanted to design, and mainly I was thinking of pocket knives that I carry. I wanted to design something that would give a real good edge and make it nice and sharp, and basically so it would shave hair. I want it to be able to cut paper nice and smooth, shave hair, then my knife is sharp.
Okay.
Okay. The only thing that's going to do is give you maybe a utility edge. Okay. Barely be able to cut, but it's not good for the blade. It's not going to give you a precision edge. It's like the low end of sharpening. If it's completely dull and you don't know how to do anything great, it's gonna go from totally dull, and we'll give some examples here. So that's kind of dull. We'll pull this one out and test that. So these are our example knives.
Yeah, I use these a lot.
Yeah, we're going to have to sharpen that. And so we'll throw it in this way to start. Let's talk then about the differences between this and the other systems. We want to talk about a precision edge, not just pull it through. It wasn't cutting, now it cuts a little bit, right?
Right.
So, looking at the rest of the system then, and why it's better than those other systems. What you mentioned is like the bottom of the line in knife sharpening. As we step up and go to the guided systems, well, one of my big pet peeves was I only had certain holes for my angles.
Okay.
It had to be that angle, or you just have to make it that angle, because that's all you have, right?
Right.
And so what I did is I developed this where it can go to any angle you want. And so you just loosen that thumb screw and you can choose your angle, literally. Okay. With this part here, and this should be, when you put that in, you tighten it all the way and then come back to the front.
Okay.
And so there I'm not going to get any play side to side that's going to cause any concerns. But this holds it absolutely tight. There is no play in there that you don't want.
So it'll maintain your angle once you've set it.
Exact angle every time, that's held tight. So there's no slop with this moving up and down where you don't want it.
Nice.
Okay, and that's the main thing I didn't like about that other system. Another thing I saw on forums and stuff when I was researching was people didn't like with these other systems, it's just the handle and the stone right there, and they didn't like having their fingers that close to the sharp blade. And so I put this knob on here, and the knob I leave loose. That's left loose intentionally so that you can sharpen and hold this tight, and this moves along with whatever angle you need without your finger and wrist having to move different directions.
Okay.
The base, of course, is included. That has to be. I'm like, if you need the base, why sell it without it? So that was something I came out with, and I'm like, it's included.
Okay.
This one is another big one that, and I had to brainstorm a lot on that. I have Mikhail from Emberlit to thank for that. Thanks, Mikhail, because he helped me brainstorm, and we were up late one night trying to figure out how to make this a quick release and attached system. And we came up with this hook system. So it hooks in the front there and then snaps on over the back.
That is awesome.
Another thing I found with some of the mid to higher end guided systems is they have just a tension where you tighten it down on that on the stone to hold it in place.
Okay.
And as I was using that, I actually used that system, and as I was using that in play, it came loose and fell out.
Oh.
Because it's just tension. And so if it loses that tension and it's not tightened hard enough, then you have the potential of that stone falling out. And so I wanted something that wasn't going to fall out, that took care of that. And so this does an excellent job, but still allows me to quickly swap from one grit to the other.
Yeah, that's handy.
Another thing with and this is with all other systems on the market, none of them do this when you're dealing with a guided system. I have this lock ring back here, and we're going to adjust that for this particular knife. That's another little thing. I 3D designed that or 3D printed that.
That's myself. Nice that it keeps it all contained in one.
Yeah.
So you don't have to search through a kitchen drawer to find all your parts.
Which I always, I'm going to lose them. So that's nice to have that sitting there and have a place for it. So what I did is I just adjusted this so this, I can use the full stone, but I'm not coming, when I come forward, it doesn't come forward enough to then come back and hit the front of the blade. And that's something else that I had happening with this other system, is I'd be reprofiling, which is what we need to do first on this, to create an edge, and I'd come back, drop in front of that blade, and bam, now I've got a new nick in the blade, and I'm starting all over. And so I didn't want to have that issue, so I've got a locking ring there to take care of that.
That is...
what else?
Well, and you mentioned like you had a ceramic versus a diamond. I mean, what would be the practical applications of what's the difference, and what would people be looking for on what they'd want to use with their knife? Diamond
will cut any steel. I carry a lot of, see if I can find, this is one of my favorite little knives, and this is a very hard, fairly hard, what they call powder steel. It's a super steel from today's steels that, pocket knives have evolved over the years. And it used to be that a D2 or a tool steel was the best you could get. This is S30V, this one's S30V, and that's a really hard steel to cut through. And so diamonds are the hardest thing on the planet. They'll cut through anything.
Yeah.
And so even if it takes a little longer on an M390 steel, for example, a very, very hard steel, or LMAX, it's still, this is going to cut a lot better than a ceramic. The ceramic stones are great for stainless steel, your typical kitchen knives. The ceramic will probably do pretty well. If you carry a budget pocket knife, the ceramic are going to do a great job. And then a lot of guys like how ceramics polish, because they'll act a little different than the cut of a diamond, because a diamond, it is what it is, and it's never going to change. With the ceramic, as you cut with it, particles of the it's actually aluminum oxide on the ceramic stones.
Okay.
That parts of that come off as you're working, and that means that the stone will dish out. The places that you use it more will cut away,
okay.
right? And so you'll have to flatten that stone over time. It reveals new particles to continue cutting and keep that grip, but it also means that some of those particles are going to, as they break away parts of them, it's going to make it a little finer, so you end up with a little more of a polishing act with blades.
Okay. Awesome.
So with the way I work, I like the diamond. I like to get through it quick, and so I don't worry too much about using the ceramics. If I want to polish it or do anything like that, I'll just use the strop and the lapping films.
Okay.
But I have them all available, so there's a lot of options. I wanted to show you how I change the angle on this, and this is not in a great position for me. I'm going to move it around because I'm right-handed, and so it's easier for me to move it in and out that way. But you'll notice I've got two clamps on this because it's a longer kitchen knife. And with a longer blade, I'm going to do it in shifts. I'm going to do this half of the blade and then this half of the blade. And so having two clamps means I don't have to do this half, unclamp that, move it, clamp it again, and then do the other half of the blade. Okay. So I can put that in, do that, and then I can come over here,
switch
put
right
that
to
in,
it.
and do that half, all at the same time. So it's nice to have the extra clamp.
And I like how, because obviously the way it's built, you could flip it over. You don't have to take them off. You can just flip it over to get the other edge of the knife. Okay.
Turn that over and you do the other side.
Very cool.
And this is, the fact that this can remove is something that no other system on the market has, which makes it very handy to test while you're sharpening and decide where you are and what still needs to be done. Okay.
If this is less cumbersome than those other ones that don't have this application.
Right, yeah, because if the knife stays there all the time, if you want to test it, you've got to try and get some paper in here and do that, or you have to take the knife out, test it, and then hope that you put it back in just the way it was to keep your angle.
Yeah, I can see that with difficulty.
So that is kind of nice. I like that, and that's something that a gentleman that has my system that sharpens knives for people, that was one of the things he mentioned that he just loves.
Okay, very cool.
So should we get sharpening?
Yeah, I would love to see this.
You want to take home some sharper knives? All right. So easiest way to set your angle is put a little bit of Sharpie marker right on the edge on both sides. And all we're doing here is we want to make sure that we are taking that Sharpie off all the way to the edge. Okay. Pull it over and look at that side. And so we set this up and say, I think I'm where I want to be. And then we can determine, we can get an idea of the edge here. But if we want to say, hey, I want this exact angle, well, you can adjust that and put an angle finder on there, and you can get whatever angle you want. Okay. With a kitchen knife, if we're mostly doing vegetables and we're cutting cucumbers and tomatoes most of the time, finer work, then we want a lower angle. Okay. And so we can go as low as about 10, 12 degrees on a knife if we want to. Generally, I go a bit steeper than that. So as we come across this, we can see the marker disappearing at the very edge. So we know we're taking it away at the very edge. If we want to follow this angle, we can just lower that until we're seeing the marker disappear all the way up to the shoulder of that edge. And I'm only worrying about this first half of the blade. And this is interesting, you'll see, and I don't know how well that shows in the video, but this black that's staying there, that's because the factory edge had a flaw in it when they made that edge. And so you'll see that a lot on a new you know, if you've never sharpened it, where we're going to have to take more metal away to make the edge match,
okay,
you know, from here to there.
Okay.
And you'll see that typically on the heel of the blade and the tip of the blade.